Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer for Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast here at Raiders headquarters, where literally moments ago we completed day 3 of the NFL draft. The 2024 NFL draft is now over, and Tom Telesco just finished his comments. When you're done watching this podcast, if you didn't see his press conference, you need to was very, very good. In fact, we all 3 days he did a press conference. We've got all three up for you. You need to go watch them. I think you'll learn a lot. Now, before I dig in, let me just do a little bit of housekeeping for a minute. Today's podcast is going to go over what happened today. Now, on Monday, I'm going to have a very extensive podcast about the draft in totality. On Tuesday, I was originally going to do this on Monday, but I have some travel I need to do for some family reasons. On Tuesday, I am going to have an entire podcast for you about going behind the scenes on the draft. You're going to learn some things about where did they think about moving up? Where did they not think about moving up? What about moving down? I'm going to go through a lot of stuff that happened prior to the draft. My goal in that Tuesday podcast is to really take you behind the scenes, educate you, because I want Raider Nation to be the most informed. I think it's the best fan base in all of NFL football. I sincerely believe that. But I want to teach you how to be the most educated. I think there was a lot of things that people fell for. I had a lot of people, and I'm not mad at them. And I'm not addressing critics, but who said, Hondo, I can't watch you anymore. Everybody knows they're going to go get Jaden Daniels, and all you're doing is pimping for Aiden O'Connell. And that wasn't. Again, I'm not addressing critics. I want to teach you here for a minute. I'm different than some of the other media, not all, but some. I'm not trying to sway you. I'm reporting to you what I know to be the case within the building. So the reason it's just like, why did I bring Drew Stanton on last week? To go over the quarterbacks. Okay, the Raiders weren't looking for a quarterback after day one. And after day one, there was only two guys that they were really interested in. And both of them, the cost was not the value of what they thought of the player. And I tried to temper you, and it made people mad at me, and I'm okay with that. I can handle that. I really can. It doesn't bother me. But I was trying to teach you and to really give you the best information. So I'm going to take you behind the scenes on Tuesday, and I'm going to really take it into hype, how things get going, how Raider fans got worked up, because I don't want to see you go through that. I would rather bore you with the mundane that's truthful than excite you with the delirium that's false. That's what I believe is good reporting. And quite frankly, you deserve that. You are an amazing fan base, and I believe you're deserving of that. So Monday's going to be a recap of the whole thing. And then Tuesday's going to be what I'm calling an autopsy of the 2024 NFL draft. I'm not saying this for self-serving purposes. I really hope that you listen to those podcasts. I believe it'll make you a better fan. So there you go. Let's dig into today. I thought it was a phenomenal day for the Raiders. Absolutely phenomenal day. And when we're done with this, I think you're going to understand. Now, you go back and like last year, every player drafted made the team. It was a very good draft for the Raiders. Last year was very, very good. In fact, Tom Telesco just said a minute ago, this was a really good draft, and combine it with last year's, you really have something to build with. Now, if he didn't feel that way, it wouldn't bother him to throw the old regime under the bus, because then it lowers expectations for the team. But that's not how he operates. He is not one prone to hyperbole or untruth. And so, you go back over the last 2 years, you're going to find it hard to find players that I was critical of at the time of selection. That's true. I have no problem with that because it's 100% accurate. However, if you go back before that, you can find plenty of times I've been very critical of draft picks. So I say all that because this was a great day for the Raiders. Now, I want to remind you, first and second round, you're looking for guys immediate impact. Now, last year, we knew there wasn't going to be an immediate impact by Tyree Wilson, but you knew you were getting a dog. So they understood that and took that risk. But normally, barring something like an injury, you're expecting your first 2 rounds of guys to be immediate impact players. You expect that. Now, there's going to be learning curves. You don't necessarily expect them to be starters, but you expect them to get a lot of reps. Michael Mayer did till he got hurt. Tyree Wilson was getting a lot of them and making big plays at the end. So you saw that. That's what you want. Your third, fourth, and fifth rounders are guys that you expect to make your team, but to have some work to do. So you expect to see them maybe on special teams and that kind of stuff, but you know they're a work in progress. And then your sixth and seven rounders, your goal is they make the practice squad and then eventually find their way onto the team. So I want you to remember all that in context. Now, I know we got a drinking game going, and that's fine. But I also told you that the Tom Telesco operates with he's looking for value. He's a value hunter. And so the Raiders come in today in round 4. Now, this was really amazing. Pick 112, and their first pick of the day, DeCamerion Richardson. Now, this young man is out of Mississippi State. He is 6'2", runs a 4.3 40. This kid, let me just tell you about him. He can stop on a dime and give you 9 cents change. He is tough. He is a now you have to understand the cornerback position are normally guys that aren't really tough, jump up there and tackle. They're not guys that are traditionally tough. That's why you'll watch teams in critical situations try to set up getting their running backs to the outside because they want their running backs one-on-one with a corner. I can tell you right now in the National Football League, if you were to ask all 32 offensive coordinators, you can have your running back one-on-one with a corner. Everyone would take that one-on-one matchup. He's a corner that you wouldn't take the matchup with. He's a lot like Nate Hobbs. He's got a lot of that dog in him, like Nate Hobbs, that toughness, and Jacorian Bennett. And Jacorian's that kid. He's a good one. And you know, he struggled a little bit last year, but you expect that from guys picked where he was picked. Had some confidence issues. But everything I'm hearing, they're very excited about Jacorian. But anyways, back to Richardson. This is a guy that started 2 years in the SEC, 2 years. So he played a lot of football at the highest level in college. This is not a kid coming from Sister Mary Margaret's School of fishing up in Marquette, Michigan. And there isn't one. That's hyperbole. But my point is this is a guy that's started 2 years in the SEC and did very well. Now, he does not have the greatest hands. He is not going to get a million interceptions. But part of that is because he was Mississippi State's #1 corner, teams didn't attack him as much. Now, it still is fair to mention because when he went against teams that had, big time players, they would go at him, but it was easier to go to the other side of the field. This guy has the things you can't teach. Now, I have been harping on this to you, and so has AP and Tom Telesco. And sometimes people don't want to listen. I mean, excuse me, they don't want to hear. You can sit and listen to the TV and not say what, be able to, if I said to you, what did Hondo say the last 10 seconds? I don't know. That's listening, but not hearing. It's very important to listen to me, please. Because if you don't hear this, you're not going to understand this draft. AP, I asked him at the owners' meetings. I'm the guardian of the gate of the culture. I've asked Telesco. Remember, I asked him this last Monday, and he said, yes, I feel like it's my job to protect the culture and what AP's doing. They have brought in coaches that are very tough coaches. These are no nonsense butt kickers. Okay, they're tough. Yeah, the players love them, and you see the cigars and all that. That's fine. You may remember a few months ago on this broadcast, we had Braylon Edwards, the NFL star, who happens to be a dear friend of mine, on the show, and he talked about people misunderstand a player's coach. The player's coach loves you and loves you enough to tell you what you're doing wrong, and then but not give up on you and attack you. He's ready to coach you if you're ready to be coached. This is not a staff that a lot of people want to play for these kind of guys. There's the Pete Carroll type where it's fun. It's like a college frat house and you're having a lot of fun. This is a more of a military, we're tough, we're going to kick your butt, but we're a band of brothers and we're all close. I would describe it like a special forces unit. Those guys are tough. They hold each other accountable. They're very hard on one another, but they're very close. That's how I would describe the Raiders. It is a John Madden. John Madden, everyone talks about him being player's coach. Well, you talk to the people who played for him. He wasn't afraid to put a boot in your butt, and neither was Al Davis. That's this staff. A person that wants to be coddled, a person who wants to be sensitive. Don't yell at me. No, this ain't for you. This is old school football. So they wanted to get players with an old school football mentality. They wanted those guys, a forearm shiver to the face. You know how you dap guys up? Yeah, I'm not going to dap you up. I'm just going to give you a forearm shiver that would make the WWE go, oh, that's the style. Richardson is that kind of kid. Now, PFF had him rated very, very high on some several qualities, physicality especially. I think he was the number one physical ability, and I may be using the wrong term, but I tweeted it, so you can go find it on my tweet. Corner in this draft, just pure physicality, the athleticism. You can't teach any of that. He is a kid that takes hard coaching. He is a kid that plays mean, tough, and nasty. Let me say this. You can't coach height. You can't coach strength. You can't coach speed. And you can't coach brain. That is why the good coaches want the guys that have the speed, the strength, the athleticism, and the brain. And then the dog, meaning they love football. They love it. It's like, ooh, I got to play this game. I love it. Let me see. I enjoy football so much. And they want those kind of guys, that Max Crosby, Robert Spillane type guy. It's what they wanted. This is DeCamerion. And this kid, I got to tell you, they really, really liked him. Again, 6'2", 4'3". Go check out my Twitter. I put some video up of him, just physical. And this is a guy that's going to get down the field fast. He's going to make an immediate impact on special teams, which is what you expect from grades 3, 4, and 5. He is a guy that's going to be able to work himself into the rotation. He's going to get reps. And he's a guy that the Raiders have great coaching with Ricky Manning. Tough coaching, but great coaching. And this should encourage you guys. Now, a lot of people had him, and let me look at my notes here because I want to get it right. The Raiders had him with a high third round grade, and they picked him up in the fourth round. They really liked him. He was a guy. That's why they were able to, all of a sudden they go tight end in the first round, guard in the second round, offensive tackle in the third round. Okay, they took Glaze probably one round earlier than they probably had planned, but the list of the tackles they were willing to live with was down to him. So you take him there because you have enough corners on your board that you feel comfortable that I'll get corners that I believe in. And this was a great get. And do I think he comes in and is a starter day one? No. Do I think he's an eventual potential starter? Yes. But in fairness, they got Jack Jones and they got Nate who are locked in. He's going to have a chance to compete. And it's going to be interesting to watch. But he has everything he's got all the physical gifts that come from God. In the love of the game, the dog that only can come from your heart. And all of that made this a really good pick for them. They got him later than where they had him projected. Again, they had him at a high 3. They get him at 4. So it's a big value. And I give him a B. And I like that pick a lot. Okay, then we come into the next guy. And this is somebody, Tommy Eichenberg. Now, let me tell you about Tommy Eichenberg. I'm very familiar with Tommy. I watched him play a game in high school at St. Ignatius when they took on St. Ed's. St. Ignatius is where Brian Hoyer's from. This kid is a middle linebacker. Now, I have a friend who is a retired NFL scout, very successful, who lives in Ohio. And he texted me and said, the Raiders just got Jack Lambert 2.0. This is a bloody, muddy Robert Spillane 2.0 type player. He is just like DeCamerion. He's got that Max Crosby mentality. You're going to have to kick him out of the building. He watches a ton of film. He's tough. Remember last year when Max Crosby played and risked getting his leg amputated? Do you remember when Robert Spillane broke a hand, finished a game, and then played the next week? Well, let me tell you about Tommy Eichenberg. Tommy freaking Eichenberg. That should be his nickname, Tommy freaking Eichenberg. This kid goes out, has 2 broken hands, and keeps playing. He's a tackling machine. Nobody gets away from him. Nobody does. Now, over the coming weeks, we're going to be having on a specific person very familiar, whether it's a college coach, a media beat writer, to talk about each of these individual players. We're going to break these guys down in detail because this was a big class. 10 years from now, we'll look back at this class, bookmark it, and I think you're going to say, wow, that was a really good draft. Really, really, really good draft. Eichenberg was a steal, an absolute steal. Again, they had a low second and an early third round grade on him, and they get him I'm just making sure, in the 5th round, pick 148. And this pick's an A. You got a stud player who's going to play every special teams unit. He is going to make plays, and I totally see him being the guy to step in and take Robert Spillane's job whenever Robert's done, and I think he's going to get an extension. This is a guy that is all football. All football. Literally. I was told by somebody very familiar with him, you're going to think he's not a smart person because all he wants to do is talk about football. And they said, but that's totally not true. He's very smart, able to read film as good as anybody. This person who's been in football for many, many decades told me one of the best guys at seeing his vision, seeing the game. All this is stuff we've heard about Robert Spillane. Is phenomenal. It's the same way with some people think that when they meet Robert Spillane. No, it's just football. This guy is a football gym rat. This is a guy that's going to be in here at 6 a.m. every single day with Max Crosby. You're noticing a trend here. They got this kid way the value of the pick. Now, when we grade these guys right now, we're only grading them for right now. The most important grade is going to come in 5 years. That's the most important grade. I mean, let's be honest. So we're grading them based upon where they are entering the league. They're going to determine how big their grade is afterwards. See, when they get here, we grade them on what they've done. And when they leave, we grade them on what they did. And so Eichenberg was a steal. I know that there were several teams that loved him, didn't like him, loved him. One team that was completely set, backups and everything else, they just couldn't take him. I was told they were, no, I wasn't told by someone with that team. I was told by an executive at another team. They were trying to trade somebody so that they could get Eichenberg. But this is a guy that's a complete stud. And the fact he was sitting there in the 5th round, I can tell you the Raiders had looked at getting back up into the 4th round. And I believe the guy they were trying to get back up into the 4th round for was Eichenberg, but he fell. And again, they didn't want to overspend. They were frugal, not cheap. They gave away no picks from next year. That's pretty cool. They gave away no picks, no players, and accumulated a lot of talent. Eichenberg is an absolute star. I give him an A. Now, you come to the next guy, Dylan Labe. And boy, I got a lot to tell you about this guy. So let me get this to you. He was a 4th or 5th round projection. They got him in the 6th. And this is a kid that reminds a lot of people of Austin Ekeler. Now, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's an immediate special teams stud. Someone told me that it reminds him of Izzo, not Tom Izzo, but Izzo from the Patriots with the special teams. He's going to go out and do passes. He can run the ball. So he can run the ball. He can run pass routes. He's going to do all of your special teams, kickoff return, punt return. This is a kid that I expect to make the 53-man roster. Now, I want you to listen to me for a minute because I don't mind being held accountable. I don't think they could put him on the practice. I think somebody would sign him. He's from New Hampshire. So a lot of people didn't know a lot about him. They looked at his stats. And so people who aren't paid in this business, media people, write reviews and scouting reports about them online. But the NFL people who, all those scouting reports, a lot of them are written before the Senior Bowl. And those guys after the Senior Bowl could not believe how good he was. And remember, going from New Hampshire to Senior Bowl competition it's like the gap of going from college to pro. And at the Senior Bowl, I was told by more than one team, there wasn't one player at the Senior Bowl who helped his stock more than Dylan Labe. This is a guy that a lot of people had. I'm just double checking it again with a 4th or 5th round grade. The Raiders had a 4, and they get him at the 6. Now, remember, I told you your expectations are that 1 through 5 obviously make your roster. 6th and 7th round picks make your practice squad. So when you get a guy who makes your roster, your 53, as a 6th or 7th rounder, that is a huge home run. Thayer Mumford was a huge home run. That's Dylan Labe. So again, you get a 6th rounder with a 4th round grade, and a guy in the 6th round is going to make your roster. That's an A. Now, here's where I need you to be careful. Brock Bowers was an A+. So you say, well, Hondo, if Brock Bowers was an A+, Dylan Labe in the 6th round, if he's an A, should be a starter. No, you have to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. An A in a 9th grade English class is not equivalent to an A in a 12th grade physics class. So when you grade, you have to understand the grade is equivalent to where the player was picked. Now, you pick Dylan Labe in the 3rd or 2nd round. Yeah, I think you don't give it as high of a grade. Pick him in the 4th round. That's where he was supposed to be picked, and he's going to make your roster. I think in the 4th round that this kid is a solid B, maybe a B-, depending on where you pick him in the 4th round. You get him in the 6th, A. So I need you to understand that, because I know that some people have said, well, Hondo, if you give multiple players an A, then shouldn't you have the same expectation? No, again, you don't. I've shared this story with you before, but I need to share it with you again. I have been a horse owner for most of my life. I love horses. Okay, if I'm going to go race you in a horse, and you have a thoroughbred and I have a quarter horse, and you said, hey, you want to race? I said, yeah, I'll race you to the telephone pole and back, and it's a quarter mile. My quarter horse is going to kill you every time. But if you say, let's run a mile and a half, my quarter horse is only good for about a quarter of a mile. That's its peak. It's why it's called a quarter horse. But you're on a thoroughbred, you're going to lose the quarter mile, but you're going to kill them at a mile and a half. Same principle is you have to compare apples and apples, oranges to oranges. You don't get mad at a defensive tackle for not having as many touchdowns as your running back. Why? Different positions. So I'm trying to help you understand the grading process. So you take Dylan Labe and you steal him. Had a phenomenal Senior Bowl and went up a ton of boards. And he was outstanding. All right. Then we come to 2 7th round picks. And I'm going to tell you, 2 A's. I think there's a good chance that both of them are going to make the roster. Now, in my head, I'm trying to process that because I know who's on the roster. But let me go over this a little bit. Let's go first to the Thorpe Award winner for the best defensive back. And you go out to Trey Taylor from Air Force. Now, automatically, my heart goes out to him, and I admit that I have a special place in my heart for our warriors, for our precious military and police who are willing to just put their life on the line for us. I got a special place in them. But he had a lot of offers to go to a lot of big schools. And we just got done talking to him, and he talked about he picked the academy because of the quality of education, and he knows that football doesn't last forever. He's a dog. This guy just plays with an edge. Oh, he's Ed Reed's cousin. Uh, just a stud. Now, let me tell you about this guy. Um, Jim Thorpe Award winner, and he had a 5th-round grade on him. Okay. Now, listen, I can't control what internet experts say, and there are some good people on the internet that are experts. I'm telling you, within the league, where was he seen? Where did the Raiders think his value was? This is why everyone else was panicking about corners. They really weren't. They really weren't, because they knew there was just a lot of value. There were certain places in this draft that were not deep. I'm going to tell you, there were some picks that went off the board at corner, and I'm looking down, and you're seeing some of these guys, and you're like, what? What? No. Trey is a safety. I know I said corner, but I mean a safety. I think he's going to make this team. He is a huge hitter, and he may be one of the smartest guys now on the Raiders. There's a lot of smart guys in this team. He may be one of the smartest. Super, super big time IQ, football IQ, and everything else. I mean, he's just super smart. And he comes into this, and so here's your safety. And I know I said corner. I apologize as being stupid, but I saw some other corners going off, and they weren't panicking because of. I'm thinking about MJ, who's next, and of course thinking about DeCamerion, but they weren't panicking, and this was a safety that they really wanted. Now, you may remember a few weeks ago I went over draft needs in my podcast, and one of the things I said was safety. And I knew that back then this was a guy they were targeting. This is a guy they really liked. Well, he just kept slipping, and he just kept slipping. And so the Raiders, they were at times thinking, oh my God, this board is really developing well for us. This is wow. So they go get him. And again, Trey is just a big hitter. He is a guy that has plenty of speed, super smart. I was told that his upside is higher than Marcus Epps, and that's huge. I don't know that I believe that, but I don't not. I would say the jury's out for me. I was told it by somebody I completely trust that said, oh, I think he's going to, not now, but he's going to be better than Epps. You let Epps tutor him? Dog. So that was really big. Then I want to come into the last pick of the night, MJ Devonshire. Now, I know MJ, actually. I am looking at something here. He's from Pittsburgh, and many of you know because we've had him on this show a couple of times as a guest. Pat Narduzzi, the head coach at Pittsburgh, my fishing buddy. Him and his wife Donna and all their beautiful children. Just our families are very close. And Devonshire is a guy. The Raiders had a high 5th-round grade on. I know one team that had a 4th-round grade on them, but the way the board fell, they were able to fill needs and just didn't have a spot for them. Devonshire comes in, and let me just tell you about this young man. He is very coachable, but he's a fighter now. He is mentally and verbally a lot like Maxx Crosby. He's a guy that has been coached very hard. He fits the Raider locker room. I'm sorry. this is not a slam on today's generation, but not all parents, because I don't think that's how I raised my kids. But a lot of parents are raising kids with participation trophy and be sensitive to their feelings. That's not the Raider. No, keep your feelings in the parking lot. I heard it said this way: Jesus may have your heart, but when you step on this field, we got your ass. I just thought that was funny. And when the person told me, I laughed. They go, "We thought you'd like that." Because they know my face important to me. And they go, "We thought you'd like that." But that's their philosophy. Hey, you know, whatever. But when you step on this field, we got your ass. We're going to coach you now. I'm going to tell y'all something. There were some guys that I think Raider fans wanted them to get that weren't going to fit here. They couldn't have taken the coaching here. They would probably go play for a Pete Carroll or a Sean McVay and do really well. But this is a locker room that's not made for everybody. If you're a guy that's going to say, "Hey, I put my 4 hours in and try to get out as quick as you can," you're not going to want to be here. If you're a guy that isn't willing to work, if you're a guy that's not willing to show some dog, you're not going to fit with the new look Raiders. And so there were some guys I know people wanted in the draft that didn't really fit. And I know that there were some guys that in free agency that as they did their due diligence, they thought they would really like, they won't fit here. So they go out and get Devonshire. Again, I'm going to give it an A. 5th round grade. You pick him up in the 7th. I think the guy has a really good shot at making the team. A very good shot. The only concern that I have is DeCamerian's going to make it. Jack Jones is going to make it. Nate Hobbs is going to make it. We know that Jacorian Bennett, I think they'll take 5 corners. So I'm going to give him a real shot. But with his inexperience and DeCamerians and, Jacorians, and then you take Nate and you take Jack Jones, you want some veterans in there. So, and if you only take 5, so if you take 6, then maybe you keep a face on. But he's going to make it tough for them. But I give that guy an A. You get a 5th rounder in the 7th and a guy that I think has a tremendous shot of making your team. I'm sorry. That's an A pick. You may totally disagree, and I respect that. That's why I taught you what my process is of grading. And in case you're wondering, I was taught this by NFL general managers and head coaches. Because when I first started in media, I graded differently. And I'll never forget a guy called me in, a very well-known NFL guy, very well-known, Super Bowl winner. He said, "Listen, I respect you. I think you try to do this thing the right way. I think you try to be fair. So can I teach you about grading?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "You can't compare a 1st rounder and a 7th rounder. Each is different." And he's the one that used, his example was you don't use a Formula One car to race a NASCAR. They're 2 different cars. They race 2 different tracks. And then I said to him, "You mean like horses?" And he goes, "Yes." And so they taught me that. This was a great 3rd day for the Raiders. I will tell you, I believe top to bottom, this was without a doubt the best draft in the 5 years that I've been covering the Raiders. Not even close. I thought last year was really good, but I don't think it even compares. If you look at this, you legitimately got 8 players who can make your roster. You got 2 guys that could be absolute starters next year. And I think there's a good chance you could get 3 starters by the end of the year, possibly 4, possibly. I'm just telling you. I think was a great day for the Raiders. They stuck to a pattern. They wanted dogs. They wanted guys that being it's not, oh gee, I got to go to the building. It's man, you got to kick me out of the building. They got guys with toughness. They got guys that love hand-to-hand combat. They got guys that are going to go up and drill you. They want to hit you in the face. I'm telling you, Trey Taylor coming out playing center field and Patrick Mahomes rounds the corner. It's going to be like me with some fresh lamb chops. He's going to be like, I have a chance to go up and hit Patrick Mahomes? Yes, please. I'm telling you, tough. You throw a Christian Wilkins into this. I mean to tell you now, this Raider team is better. I still think there's a possibility that they go make a trade. I don't know that that's a probability. Matter of fact, I don't think it is. I don't think anything's imminent. But I think they're going to give these rookies a good chance at rookie camp coming up, but that's not going to tell us a whole bunch. But in June at mandatory mini camp, we go learn some stuff. And then that first 2.5 weeks of training camp, let's go. Let's go. And great day. Raider Nation, you are certainly entitled to, in any way that you want, evaluate this draft any way you would like. I respect that. It's your choice. But I'm telling you, as I'm not a fan, I'm not emotionally involved. I love football. And if you're a football crazed maniac, if you are a Ted Hendricks, Lyle Alzado, Howie Long, or like my dear friend Matt Millen, if you have a Max Crosby mentality, if you love Robert Spillane, you love a Dylan Parham, I mean, you love a Christian Wilkins. You're sitting here today choosing your beverage of choice. I take vitamin water. By the way, if you've never drank this stuff, just go do it. Trust me. I was exposed to it this weekend, and I don't know that I'll ever be the same. You love those kinds of guys. You love the guys that get up off the turf and they're muddy and they got blood coming out of their face and snot all over them. And they're just, the guys who would play in the leather helmets. If you like that, if you loved old school Raider football, I mean, you got to remember now, I grew up in the Midwest. I'm a Michigander. And so Monday nights was my night. I didn't have a bedtime. And Monday Night Football started at 9 o'clock at night. And Monday Night Football was great because it was my night with my dad. I don't care what it was. He'd tell everybody, nope, I got a date with my son. I got a date with my son. And he'd order a pizza and we'd get a pizza. Or he'd bring home burgers, or we'd go to Chi-Chi's, which was a Mexican restaurant, best Mexican food in the world. That was near us, and he'd pick us up, and I always got a Tampico, which was 3 cheese enchiladas with red onion, beans, and rice, and he'd get a El Grande burro, and we'd sit there with TV trays, and we would just pound frescas and watch football. If you loved the way the old school Raiders played, this was your weekend. This was your draft. The future's bright. The ship is now turning. I think the Raiders lost their identity for a long time. a long time. In fact, I'm going to get into that more later this summer. But now you're seeing the identity of the Raiders going back to what it used to be. Okay, we're the bad guys. We're the bad guys. But we're not going to commit penalties. We're going to play discipline. And when I say we, I'm talking about them speaking from their voice, not me. I don't speak for the organization, not a fan. And we're going to kick your ass. And you may beat us, but you're going to feel it the rest of the year. Raiders are coming. They're coming. Another name for this draft would be the Max Crosby draft. They wanted people who play like Max. Maximum effort, maximum heart, maximum dog. That's what they wanted. And they got it at every single position. Every single position, except, no, every single position. They got players lower than where they should have been picked. I'm sorry, I don't work for this organization. I don't get paid for this organization. Y'all have seen me take this organization to task when I thought they were wrong. And you've seen me praise it when I think they did it right. Raider Nation, you all should be saluting Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce, Champ Kelly, and this scouting department. They went into this saying, we need a lot of players at a lot of positions, but they all have to have one thing in common. In the words of Pat McAfee, and in the words of Max Crosby, and in the words of Antonio Pierce, they've got to be straight dogs. That's what they got to be. Attackers, butt kickers. I don't need to name you, but do you remember last year the Raiders spent several $1 million on a player that ran from contact? You just added 8 men to your ball club who are heat-seeking missiles. Now, in fairness, I wouldn't call Dylan Laube a heat-seeking missile. He just goes away from it. Because he's a running back. But you just hired a bunch of people that love that hand-to-hand combat. You know, at the bottom of a pile up when there's a fumble and you got guys stabbing people in the eyes and gouging flesh and punching people. I mean, that's old school football now. I remember the first few years I covered this team, and I've never said this publicly. A very good friend of mine who played in the NFL for a long time, a very good friend. He and his wife and me and my wife are friends. We vacation together. Him and I hunt together. He said to me, what do you think about covering the Raiders? He goes, I know how much you loved covering college football and basketball. You went out there to Vegas because you wanted to cover the Raiders. And I said to him, Matt's one of my best friends, Millen. And I've told you, he always described to me the Raiders. And I said, I had always had a special heart for the Raiders because growing up in the Midwest on Monday Night Football, most of the games were always the Raiders. And so my dad loved Jim Otto was my dad's favorite player. And because I got to watch, I have so many memories watching Monday Night Football with my dad, and he was my hero. And I love him. And he's almost been gone 10 years, May 1st. And he was a godly man, and he was a great man and a great provider. And I just don't have one ill thing to say about my father other than my children deserved him to be their dad more than me because I could never be him. And so, but I said to him, this gentleman, I said, I'm covering a team that's wearing the Raider uniform, but they don't play like the Raiders. I said, there's a couple guys that do, but as a whole, in totality, from coaching on down, there just isn't that Raider mentality. I said, it's concerning to me. And I remember when John Gruden took the bus around the Chiefs Stadium, that was a Raider thing. I loved that. But overall, they didn't carry themselves with the demeanor of Raiders. Then came Antonio Pierce. And he said, we are Raiders. And it's time we look and act like them. He goes on and says, we're going to punish Patrick Mahomes. Why? Because he knows he's not going to do it illegally. His team was the least penalized team. They're the old school Raiders, except they have discipline. Because AP played for a disciplined franchise and won a couple of Super Bowls, and he knows what that discipline does with the G-men. So he said, we're going to take what being a Raider is, but we're going to add discipline. We're going to be outlaws. We're going to hit people hard. They may beat us, but they're going to feel it the rest of the season. Can you imagine being some team that plays them in week 1 or 2, and you're going to deal with the bumps and bruises and injuries the rest of the year from that? Even if you're not injured, meaning going to go on the IR, you're still going to feel it because they're physical. If that's you, if that's what you like, if football is just not something you watch while you eat Ritz crackers with Grey Poupon and feta cheese and sip champagne, if you are an old school, I want to see blood. I want to see, my buddy Kenny King Jr. always tweets this out. But it's what AP says, violent. If you want to see those attributes, Merry Christmas to this draft. Now, I think there are a few guys that are held over from previous regimes that may eventually not fit. Good guys. They're either going to have to develop the dog attitude or they're going to get run off the porch. I don't even know if you guys are, that's a Midwest colloquialism. It says if you're going to hang out with the big dogs, then you got to be willing to be on the porch. And because when you pull up to a Midwestern house, a lot of times you see a dog sitting on the porch. It's a whatever. I think there's going to be some guys that are now going to look, and this new class of Raiders, both in free agency and in the draft, are going to come walking in that locker room, and they're going to look at some guys and say, "Hey, boys, we're here. We're here. Let's go." And they're going to compete now. And I think it was Trey Taylor, and I don't remember his exact words, and so I apologize. This is not a quote, but basically said, "I'm coming in to compete to start. These guys are coming in to take jobs." Raider football, it's back. Now, I don't know how the schedule is going to look, and I don't know what the final roster is. So I don't think this is a Super Bowl team. But what it's going to start looking like now, you're finally going to be able to look at this team for 60 minutes, for 17 weeks, and say, they looked like Raiders. They played like Raiders with discipline. And you just got dogs. Now, real quickly, as soon as the draft was over, the Raiders signs Carter Bradley, Gus Bradley, the former defensive coordinator's son from South Alabama, as a UDFA. I have been hinting at this. Matter of fact, in my podcast this morning, I think it was my exclusive, the Riding with Hondo and Dexter, that's only available on audio. It was either that one or the podcast last night. I don't remember because I've not gotten a ton of sleep. I talked about, don't forget Anthony Brown, and they may even go with a UDFA, which is what I thought at that point. I had been tipped off that that was probably what they're going to do. That's why I mentioned that. It was either last night's podcast or this morning, the audio only one I do. I do a podcast every morning that's 5 minutes. It goes anywhere from 3 minutes to 7 minutes. It's just a real short, something exclusive that I've learned over the last 24 hours. It's just real short. But I mentioned about the quarterback position. I said, I thought they would get a quarterback today. And I said, and it could be through the draft or a UDFA. And I said, but don't forget Anthony Brown, because I had been tipped off that was probably the direction they were going. So they did eventually get a quarterback, but it doesn't matter. On Tuesday, when I do the anatomy of the draft, and you're going to understand, it'll all make sense to you. You may be sitting here today. Why did they let a Spencer Rattler go? Why did they let Jordan go from Florida State? What about Pratt and others? If you will just trust me, it will make sense to you on Tuesday when I do my big podcast, The Anatomy of the 2024, excuse me, the autopsy of the 2024 NFL Draft. That's going to be Tuesday. Monday is going to be a complete recap of this draft. Tuesday is the autopsy of the draft. You're going to give you a lot of inside information on Tuesday. So just hang with me. I want to tell you real quick before we go. These last 3 days of covering this draft have been so much fun. And I enjoy my job. Somebody asked me, do you love your job? No, I love my family, but I enjoy my job. I really do. And I am so blessed to be in this building covering what I believe is probably the most influential professional sports franchise of any sport in any league in the world. I truly respect, admire, and love Raider Nation. You guys are amazing. I know I am not entitled to you tuning in every day, to clicking and reading our articles. I know that. I know that. I got to earn it. But I'm going to tell you, it is so worth it to serve you. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for letting me be your beat writer. I tell my wife, thank you for picking me. Thank you for saying yes. Because I never, ever am going to let one day go by that my wife does not know that she's very, very beautiful. She could have had any guy she wanted. She had the personality. She was very stunningly beautiful, and she absolutely loves the Lord with her whole heart. Just a precious woman. And I tell her, Shannon, thank you for saying yes. And I told her, if you'll say yes to me, I will work my hardest that at the end of my days, when I die, you tell the Lord, thank you for him. And so I want you to know you are an amazing fan base. And a while ago, I read a study, and I don't remember the amount anymore, but I believe it was close to 90% of American people said that they don't feel like anybody in their life appreciates them. We have hundreds of thousands of you that watch these videos and read the articles. Our coverage is blown up. I don't know you all. I can't shake everybody's hand. But if you're one of those 90%, tonight when you go to bed and you think about the people who don't appreciate you, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I want you to remember that I do. And when I'm looking into this camera every single day, and we do a podcast every day, I'm thinking about you. And you can ask my wife, Shannon, every single day, we pray for you. We ask God's blessing on your life, on your families. And we think the world of you guys. And so from me to you, I appreciate you. Thank you for giving me the privilege of being your beat writer. It is an honor that I don't deserve, but I freely appreciate. So from all of us to you, God bless you. I hope you enjoyed our recap of the draft. Please follow me on Instagram at Hondo SR and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hondo Carpenter. All of you guys rock. I want to give a big shout out to my team. Zeke Trezevant was here in the building with me. Aiden Champion, who was in Michigan covering the draft from there. Carter Landis, Braden Reedy, Michael Franz. Our entire staff worked hard with all of this tremendous Raiders coverage for this draft. I'm proud of the work of my staff, and I'm grateful for you. God bless you, everybody. And we'll see you again with a total recap of the draft coming up on Monday. God bless you.